You're listening to TLN Radio, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts and delivered by DoorDash.
What's up, everyone? This is episode 23 of the Leafsnation Radio podcast. Nick, Michael, Scott, Caroline here with you all. And boys, what's up? How's your day so far?
Been good. It's been busy. Got to keep the house clean. It is what it is. But hey, at least we get to talk about some things to ease my mind off of, like the Leafs goaltending situation.
Oh, no. Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. Everyone's favorite topic right now.
I had an early morning, surprisingly, one of those days where you just wake up and can't fall back asleep. So in that sense, it's been slightly more productive, but other than that, just a pretty normal day.
I am very good, just because the fact that I found out Topgolf, and we talked about it before, and I tweeted about it yesterday, and people DM'd me and were responding being like, where is it? Guess what? I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to find that on your own.
You had to promise us, though, you post a highlight reel of all your Topgolf best moments.
I don't have any Topgolf. My golfing game is very bad. I will, if I play 18 holes, I will probably lose a whole bag of balls.
So you'd be on misplays of the month, not plays of the month.
Just give us a blooper reel.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I cannot do that.
Okay. All right, guys, let's talk about how kind of the wheels fell off for the Toronto Maple Leafs last week. Obviously, two big losses, one against the Sabres, one against the Canucks. They're currently sitting third in their division, so not the end of the world, but they can't be affording to lose games like they did against, obviously, Buffalo and Vancouver. So question for you guys is, because everybody's talking about this, does this come down to goaltending, obviously, with Mrazek in net against the Sabres, Campbell in net against the Canucks? And does Dubas need to act quickly? And I know we talked about this last week, but now we're facing two losses against two teams that we should have beat. Or do we still kind of wait for Campbell to get back into stride where he was in the beginning of the season?
Let's get the obvious out of the way and just shut down the rumors that the Leafs are going to trade for a goalie. Guys, it's not going to happen. Kyle Dubas said it himself weeks ago, or there was rumors were going on weeks ago that said that the Leafs are going to save the goaltending question until the offseason. So it's going to be Campbell and Mrazek the rest of the way. Don't get your hopes up for Fleury or all those guys. It's not happening. You have to work with what they've got. Yes, right now, the two goalies have been playing very subpar of late. Obviously, Campbell's probably been the one that has been at the ire of Leaf fans the most of late. And I'm seeing a select portion of the fan base on Twitter wanting him gone and out of here by the offseason. But it's the thing about the goaltending is that we obviously can't really predict it. Everyone keeps saying it's voodoo, and there's a reason for that, because on one hand you have Campbell, who's playing as a Vezina caliber goalie in the first half of the season, and then this is playing regressing to the mean of his usual numbers. I do think that he will turn around. Same with Mrazek. I think what a lot of the problems right now, yes, comes down to the lack of a meaningful save, but also the team in front of them has not been playing really well defensively, which has always been a problem. But what else is new in Leafs land?
See, the funny thing is about the defense conversation is they're actually, since December 1st, which is about when Jack Campbell started to fall off, they're actually tied for second in the league in expected goals against per 60 minutes, which I always It doesn't look like it, but I think part of that is also just the defense adjusting to the goaltending, because I feel like the more your goalies just start to let in random shots, I feel like sometimes they have to play more aggressively to try and prevent shots, period, which just isn't really how you should play defense. You should try and minimize the scoring chances, right. But if you're just trying to outright prevent shots without driving, obviously you can do that by having the puck in the other end the entire time. But if you're in the defensive zone trying to just straight up eliminate shots, it's probably not going to go well. I think the Detroit game is actually a very good example of that, because you saw how crazy the defense was once Campbell made it a close game again, just because I think the team was genuinely afraid of allowing a shot with how it was going. So I think that has a lot to do with the defense. I think otherwise they've been fine. I like Liljegren, he gets a lot of slack for it, but I think a lot of it is just because the goaltending has been particularly bad when he's on the ice. But yeah, it's hard to see how they fix that externally this season. Like even Marc-Andre Fleury, which has been probably the most promising name, like we're talking about a guy that up until like joined Vegas, and even then he's been inconsistent in Vegas. Like we forget that when he was in Pittsburgh, he was like the reason they were losing playoff series half the time as well too. So like relying on him, especially when you're gonna spend a ton of assets to get him in, kind of scares me. And like even like I was looking at this earlier today, just with just again to show how random goaltending is, because like we think about how great Price was in the series against Montreal last year, and we think about how great Korpisalo was when we played the Blue Jackets in the bubble. Price was a 901 goalie that season, like the shortened 56 game season, before just being a shutdown, like lights out against the Leafs. Korpisalo has been a career 903 goalie, and he seemed unbeatable. Like I think, like yeah, it's just random sometimes how that works out like that. Like you can't really explain it. I don't like, so it's, I guess what I come down to from all that is it probably makes sense to just ride it out and hope that you get that in the playoffs.
But do you feel comfortable with that? Like, do you believe that Campbell and even Mrazek turn it around?
I think they can. Like they've shown that they can play at a level that they could win a like playoff series.
Yeah.
I think like obviously right now it's that confidence isn't quite there because we haven't seen that consistent turnaround just yet from where they are. But like I also just don't think either of them are as bad as they have been these past couple months. And it's yeah, like I'm not entirely confident in them going into the playoffs, but like I also don't think it's a good idea to try and make a move during the season, because I feel like you're just going to overspend, when I'd rather go for a defenseman to solidify the blue line or go for a forward who can like add to the scoring punch, which always seems to kind of die away a little bit in the playoffs as well.
I think the same thing. I mean, it's so tough because if you do choose to ride it out with them too, and it does go off the rails and it doesn't work in the playoffs, it's like we could have done, like the Leafs could have done something earlier and it could have changed things. I mean, when you just look at it as a whole, like Scott said, they've both played at a level where you've seen that they can play strong games in the NHL. And Jack Campbell, for example, did that for the first half of the season. But I don't know, like the more it goes down this road, the more I'm leaning towards, okay, like this seems to be more of a problem. And if it continues, like it's going to be a big problem. But in terms of Campbell, it's so difficult to really tell like what will happen. I was thinking when Michael and Scott were talking, and I don't really think this is a similar situation, but like when I played hockey, and this is not even close because I played beer league once a week.
When Nick almost made the league.
Yeah. I just like, it's not close, but this is how I view it as, is like when you don't have a goalie that can make the saves, and when they just let in, like there's a goal that just goes in that you think shouldn't go in. Like you're sitting on the bench thinking to yourself, he should have saved that. Why did he not save that? And I think the confidence goes down. Now, mind you, that's me on the bench in a beer league game once a week. These guys they're with each other every day. So I'm pretty sure it's different. But I just thought that I wonder, like I do wonder if players ever feel that way, as if they're sitting on the bench and they see Campbell or Mrazek let in a goal and they're just sitting there, not even voicing it out loud, but just thinking in their head, like, you should have had that save.
Well, we honest to God think about it. And I don't even know if it's a pro athlete thing. I think it's a human thing where we've all played on sports teams. When our goalie makes a big save, it pumps the team up. You're like, that was unbelievable. Let's go. The momentum changes in the game, right? And when, a muffin goes in, or what is it, Draisaitl call it, a McFluffy or a fluffer or whatever he called it here, when something like that goes in, I don't know if they're like in their minds trashing the goalie, but maybe it's more so like, man, now we're down and that was bad and the other team has momentum, and it almost feels like you have to work twice as hard to get that momentum back. So I do think that, goalies play a massive role in games, not only in, saving pucks, but also, being kind of a constant in terms of they can change the entire momentum. I mean, I think it was Vasilevsky the other day, or it might have even been last night if they played. He made such an unbelievable glove save. And I'm just like, that's kind of a moment where teams are like, we have a solid goaltender. We know that about Vasilevsky. He's probably the best in the league. But it's just sometimes when you don't have those moments in goaltending, a team can get kind of deflated. And I think that's kind of maybe what's happening in Toronto. In the same breath, I would ride it out because, like, everyone said right now, we've seen Campbell play at another level. We're seeing him play at a level right now that we know he's way better than he's been playing. And I'm not pressing the panic button just yet. Just like when the Leafs were in that slump at the beginning of the season, I wasn't pressing panic. I know we're getting close to playoffs now, so it's important, but I'd rather Campbell and Mrazek experience this right now than a little later, maybe in, a few weeks. So hopefully they turn it around. But when I hear goaltending issues, I think of the Edmonton Oilers, where we don't have here in Edmonton a solid starting goaltender. No goaltender has really had a hot run. No goaltender here has been in the talks of the Vezina at some point in this season. I think when you hear goaltending issue, you think Edmonton Oilers. I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs are there quite yet. But hopefully they turn it around. If not, then I think it's a discussion worth having.
I think most of the sorry, I was going to say
sorry. I was just going to tag on to like the Edmonton thing quickly. But like not just that, with like also both with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, neither of them have had like an established like several season run as like a really good goalie as well. Like Mike Smith has had the odd year here and there, but like he's usually been pretty like at best average. And like Koskinen, like I think he had like 20 good games when he started his Edmonton career, and they signed him to a long-term contract because of it. But yeah,
I mean, it doesn't make sense here in Edmonton. Stuart Skinner, I think the last time we saw him was when he had his first NHL career shutout, and then he went back to the AHL, and then it's kind of just been Mikko and Mike Smith. And I understand, like, I don't like crapping on anyone, but you gotta just tell it how it is. And goaltending is, I think Edmonton's a perfect example of a serious goaltending issue. And again, I don't think Toronto's quite there yet. Hopefully they don't get there. And when that time comes, we can talk about it. But I think it's kind of just Campbell being in a slump, Mrazek being in a slump. Toronto's a hard market. Of course, the fans that are, saying that Campbell should leave are probably the Campbells, are probably the Campbells are probably the fans that were cheering him on the hardest too when he was in conversations for the Vezina. So Toronto's just a tough market. Fans are very hard to please in Toronto, and I'd like to give it a couple more weeks before I'm like, okay, this is bad,
Yeah, and I think a lot of the panic from, at least from the fan base, has to do with the standings, which is what I'm looking at right now. The gap between the Panthers and the Lightning is widening. And the lead over the Boston Bruins has shrunk down to just 2 points. So I think that's the reason why a lot of Leaf fans are like panicking, like trade a goalie. And I think it just comes down to like, if Campbell and Mrazek just play, like they don't have to play like at the level that they were playing at in like Campbell's playing out in November, and like Mrazek was showing like when he came back from his most recent injury at the beginning. Like if they just play like to a more like median as in like around league average, like that could potentially start turning things around, because like a lot of confidence, like a lot of the issues from the fan base has just come down to just the lack of a meaningful save. And if the Leafs can get some performances out of their goalies in these next 4 games, because they've got a pretty big matchup coming up on Sunday, which is outside, I believe, and I think that's the kind of game where you like a big performance from their goalies could really just turn things around.
Yeah, I like. You talk about like how they even just need league average goaltending. Like Mrazek's been there himself. He was pretty average that year when he went to the conference finals with the Hurricanes when they first like really broke out as a dominant team as well. So like, I think like we always talk about how you need a dominant goalie to go far in the playoffs, but I think we've also seen a lot of times where just like pretty average goalies can like get you pretty far too, as long as you play well in front of them. And I think that is hope, like, yeah, as long as they can just figure stuff out and get to that point, even like, I don't need Campbell to be on the Vezina run that he was at. Just like, if he, like the fact that he's, I think 10-5 and like while also going through this like really bad stretch says a lot about how like they just need average goaltending out of him, and they can probably make a deep run if all the cards click.
And like you think about it too, it's like they could be regressing. I don't even know if that's the right word, but just playing bad at the right moment. Like maybe this is the part where it just is all downhill, and then it just continues to go uphill until it reaches where they want to go. But I mean, there's always two sides to that coin. There's either the coin that is the one side is like they stay down and they don't come back from this, or it's the other way around. But there's always that side of they come back up, because like, again, like both of you have said in Caroline too, they've shown that they can be good goaltenders. It's just about turning the switch back to the other way. And it's probably going to be difficult, I think, with Campbell in particular, but if there is one game to do it and they do it in, like, I think that's the spark that'll light the fire. It's not, I don't think it'll be like a steady upward trend. I think it'll be like one game where they play good and then that's it. That's them turning it around.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like if I could choose, I'd rather the Leafs obviously do everything they can to make the playoffs, but kind of be in this slump right now and start to peak when you're in the playoffs, right? Like that's what our problem is, I mean, last year we peaked before and then we lost first round to the Habs, right? So I don't necessarily, obviously you have your criticisms as a fan, but I don't necessarily think that it's a panic emergency situation yet. And this could work in our favor where the boys come playoff time, get it together in our full consistent unit from top to bottom when it matters most. So we'll see. And what I really like is obviously, you know, Sheldon Keefe has spoke to goaltending issues, but I feel like Campbell and Mrazek have a lot of support in the Leafs organization around coaching. And I think that that's really important, especially for someone like Campbell, who, you know, is an emotional guy. You know, he's taking every single one of his performances to heart. I think it helps when you have coaching staff and players who are really, really behind you. And I don't know if that's the same in every organization. I mean, like Keefe to the media the other day said that, you know, they've still been giving up tips and that makes life harder for their goalies. Our team has a job is to make life easier on the goalies. So little comments like that take off a little bit of pressure on Campbell and Mrazek and obviously the goaltending situation as a whole. And I think that goes a long way for an individual who's kind of in the spotlight and receiving a lot of harsh criticism from fans, even though it may be well-deserved. They're still a human being. I think those, inspiring and maybe like motivating little nudges from a head coach to the media goes a long way for them. So I like hearing Keefe be honest about the situation, but also, you know, have his players' backs. Cause I don't think that that's very common in this league.
One of the things we usually talk about, and especially today, is that confidence plays a huge role in sports. Yeah. And I think that this is what's going on with Campbell is just he's getting in his head a little bit about his mechanics, and maybe he's trying too hard. He actually said this himself after the game on Saturday. Sometimes trying too hard isn't always the best thing. I think in Campbell's case, he just needs to simplify his game a little bit and just have fun. Because obviously he strives on confidence, and he does, like you said, he takes his game very seriously. So if there's a game where he doesn't do too well, he'll take it. His harshest critic will be himself. But for a position that relies on confidence, but also just pure luck, like sometimes just simplifying the mechanics just goes a long way. And I think that for Campbell and to a lesser extent Mrazek, just like if they can just find a way to just stop thinking about it and just start doing the thing they need to do, like that could go a long way. That's how I always view life. Like when you stop thinking about it and you just start doing it, things turn around.
I don't know if any of you guys saw the intermission segment on Saturday where Kelly Hrudey went into like detail about what going through a slump as a goalie was like for him, at least. But like that yeah, like I think that's exactly confidence as well as playing such a big impact for him, especially in a contract year too. Like I can't imagine how much he's probably even thinking about just how much money he's lost over the last like 2 months because of this stretch. Or at least like long-term money. Maybe some team will still give him like 4 or 5 million for like 2 or 3 years, but like he seemed like dead set on like 5-6 for like 5-6 years, and like that could be playing such a big role for him as well. And yeah, just like we know how much that impacts him. Like we always see it with how he talks about himself, the team. So I think that's just going to be such a huge part about trying to overcome that. Maybe they get like a sports psychologist to come in there and help out as well. That could be something that could go a long way. I'd rather invest in that than Marc-Andre Fleury.
I do like, one of the things that I find interesting is like when you don't have confidence, I feel like it changes the game a little bit. Like I did an interview. I feel bad for plugging, but like I did an interview with Alex Steves the other day, and he talked about how not getting drafted motivated him to be a better player than he thought he could ever be. And I just think like when you look at the Campbell situation, like he's not playing good and he wants to play good. And I think feeling that high that he felt at the beginning of the season when he was playing so good, I think when you go into a slump like that, you sort of, with all the fans telling you, well, not all the fans, but a lot of the fans losing confidence in him, sort of might allow him, I don't know if he might be the guy to do it, but allow him to come in with a chip on his shoulder every day and show everyone else that he can be that goalie. He can be the one that turns his bus around. I don't know if it's possible, but I always wonder if that can happen, especially with a guy like Campbell, who has, when his lows are low, he's low in them. And I'd love it. I'd love to see him when he gets his highs be as high as possible. And I know there's a lot of hockey players that say like, you have to balance your highs, you have to balance your lows. But I think with Campbell, like, when he has his highs, I think he's just got to stick in them, and has to just stay confident. And I think, like Michael said, taking your mind off everything and just playing the way you play instead of thinking about how much money he might get at the end of the season or how much he should be playing better just in general, I think that'll just lead him to success.
Well, think about, like, I think all of us on this podcast are, big advocates of mental health, and just think about, I just reflecting on the type of person I am. If you go through a super high and you feel on top of the world and you're like the poster boy of the Leafs organization and people are chanting soup during away games, and then all of a sudden, because you're human, you're going through a little bit of a slump and people are saying trade him, your anxiety's got to be sky high. And that's not, I'm not assuming Jack Campbell has anxiety, but I'm just, as a human being, that's got to be a very natural feeling, especially if you're one of those individuals who can feel a high or feel a low. I have a good friend who's always told me, like, being even keel is a skill set, being neutral when you're experiencing the greatest joys, and then also the unfortunately the lowest lows, and being neutral is a very important skill set, because you're not going to be able, it's not a roller coaster, right? You're going to be able to manage your emotions. So I hope that Jack Campbell kind of finds that balance, because I think it does come down to confidence for him, and that he feels the weight of the world on his shoulders with that. But one thing I really like that you said, Michael, is when you almost think about it too much and you try hard, it doesn't work out for you. And I can attest to that. When I played soccer, I remember one moment I had an open net that was like, you could do that with your eyes closed. And I tried to place this ball so nicely, even though it was an open net, I overthought it and I missed. Whereas I feel like if I just went through the motions of like everything I've known that I've trained for my entire life, it would have been for sure a goal. So I think sometimes those individuals who overthink situations, which is me, expect perfection out of themselves and wants to do everything really well for the team and is the team player. And again, someone that really cares. These are all characteristics of Jack Campbell. You can get really in your head, and games and situations that are like his bread and butter won't come out that way because he's just having a hard time mentally, which I think we can all agree on. He has the skill set. We've seen it this season. He's just in his head, poor guy. So hopefully he figures it out. And I think he has, again, like I said, the support of his coach and his player and his teammates for sure. I just hope that Leafs fans, when he comes back around, everyone is like, okay, let's chill out on Campbell and hopefully Mrazek too.
Don't be surprised if a bunch of fans start deleting tweets saying they should trade Campbell.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm not one of those people. I'm always just like, we need to relax.
See, this is why, like, earlier in the season, I was always like, yeah, this is unsustainable when he was really good, not to be negative, but to be like, hey, just a heads up, there's going to be a point where he's going to look bad, and that is going to be normal. Like that's about what recognizing those kind of trends is. It's like, it's so that in stuff like this, you also don't overreact to it,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point. And I mean, someone we can talk about who kind of went through a similar thing is John Tavares, who went 14 games without a goal. And he was feeling the pressure in Toronto. It was trade him. He's washed up. He's 31 years old. He shouldn't be playing here anymore. I mean, he has 52 points in 54 games right now. It's just he went 14 games, and I'm sure he would have loved to not have a career high goal drought that high, but it happens, and it happens to a lot of professional athletes. But he ended that goal drought against the Canucks. So, John Tavares, obviously big moment for him. He's our captain, but these things happen. And I'm sure I'm going to just assume here that John Tavares and Jack Campbell speak about these things, because the two guys who kind of are going through a slump, Peter Mrazek too. And these things are natural. And they end, and it just takes one moment for JT to find the back of the net, and hopefully, now is that monkey's off his back and he's able to score more often than not. So it's just normal in professional sports.
Yeah. Not just like have like one moment, but also like I think one thing we saw with JT's like goal was like how easy it was for him as well, because like his teammates set him up well for it. It was a 3-on-1. Couple passing plays to the point where like he would have had to have been really in the gutter to like screw that up. And like I think that's also just like goes to show what Jack might need. Like we have 4 games coming up against non-playoff teams. Obviously the first 2 games have shown that those aren't gimmies, but I think all he might need is maybe just one game where the Leafs step up and like maybe give him like 10 really easy shots against or something like that. Like I think they play Arizona on Thursday, is it? That's the perfect game. You just put him out there, give him like 10 easy saves, give him the shutout, and he starts feeling better about himself.
Yeah, exactly. And I yesterday I posted a tweet that basically was the handshake meme, where it's like Jack Campbell and Mitch Marner having the fan base turn against them because of a prolonged slump. And you could probably put that for JT, William Nylander, Morgan Riley, Justin Hall, and so on and so forth. And not even just this year's team, but any player. Like the point is that the fan base just loves to quickly turn on players as soon as they don't meet up their expectations. And Tavares is just one player that like he's been at the scrutiny of a select portion of the fan base for no real reason. Like obviously his skills were going to go down over time because he's getting up there in age. Like it's only a natural progression. Like what is he, like 31 years old and coming off a very serious concussion during the playoffs last year? Like some adjustments are going to be made, and his game is going to take a little bit of a different approach just to prolong his career. So like slumps like this like are always going to be a part of hockey. To this extent, no one, I don't think anyone saw that coming, but he's always played really well. Like a few games ago against Washington, for example, he was going in a scrum and got knocked down by Tom Wilson, and then his very next shift was instrumental in the game-winning goal. So he's been playing really well. Like obviously the goals did not go in for him, and then Saturday was finally his breakthrough. So hopefully this just starts the turnaround for him, because when Tavares is playing well, it just makes the team so much better. Because as well as the Matthews line's been playing, it'd be really nice to also see the Tavares line playing at their best, because those two lines going is going to scream nightmares for the opposition.
Yeah, we haven't really. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, when I feel like the people who are upset about Tavares are just people who run the eye test, because there's a lot of the time, like even with me, like I'll watch games and it doesn't feel like Tavares is as dominant as he used to be, maybe in New York. I don't know if other people see that, but it's the little things that he does that you don't see that will make you really know that he's doing fine. Like, he might not give you the flashiest thing, he might not show you a goal, but he's the one that's along the boards, getting the puck out, getting it in front, and having a goal scored. And a lot of people might not see that, and then you might look at the game sheet later that night and you say, oh shit, oh damn it, John Tavares just got an assist. Like, it's just something. He's not always going to be that flashy player like Austin Matthews is or Mitch Marner is. He does a lot of the work in the rough areas, and although you might not see it, it's there. And I think, again, like, it's a lot of people that just watch the game and go through the eye test and think, wow, he made that bad play, and that's the only play I'm going to look at for the whole game. That was bad, and I don't like it, and he needs to score a goal because he hasn't. But in reality, like Caroline said, 52 points, he's doing fine in 54 games. Like,
yeah, he's almost a point per game.
I don't know what people want from him other than that. Like, do you want him to be in the rocket race? Like, that's not going to happen. I just, at times I struggle just because people are just so upset all the time. And it's like, what do you have to be upset about? They're in a playoff spot. They're doing fine. Wait till the playoffs to be upset.
We are a fan base that just loves to crap on ourselves so that our expectations are low enough going into the playoffs. I think that's probably what it is.
Why are we like this? I don't get it. Like, I understand being hard on, a performance or being mad after a bad loss. Yeah, be mad after losing to the Sabres 5-1. That's really, really bad. But why are we like this with our players? I mean, when JT signed to Toronto, it was like, remember that? It was the be all end all. And now we're like, trade him. What? Why are we like that? I don't get it. And exactly that we forget, Michael, you bring up an excellent point. We forget that the fact that he's playing after that terrible hit and terrible concussion is like unreal. We don't think about the fact that maybe he's probably still dealing with a few things. I don't want to speculate, but we all had concussions. Sorry, my dog's freaking out. We've all had, we know what it's like to have a concussion. He's been 52 points in 54 games. Why don't we give these guys any credit? Why is it always just like trade? We don't like him. We don't want him. I don't know. Leafs fans sometimes are just like, I want to tell them to just like breathe in and breathe out.
I think a lot of it is like, I've seen some people, and I've talked about it with other people, and a lot of people's lives revolve around the Leafs, and just like their whole lives are in it. Like, if they're having a bad game, the person's mood is terrible because they're playing bad. And I think, like, it's rude to say, but like, I've said it before, especially when Mitch Marner was playing bad, like, go outside and do something. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I think Scott said it last podcast. If they're having a bad game, you can turn the game off. You don't have to watch it. Like, it's not something that you have to live through. It's not your life. Like, there's other things that can provide a lot of fun when the Leafs are doing bad that you could do. Like, I don't know. That's just my view of it. And it feels like when the people who are coming at Jack Campbell, John Tavares, Marner, it's the people whose lives like just are through the Leafs, and that's all they talk about is Leafs, when you got a whole other bunch of stuff to talk about in life.
You guys should write an article for the Leafsnation.com that when the Leafs have a bad game or like are going through a slump, fun things that Torontonians can do to boost their spirits, or I don't know, extracurricular activities or hobbies they should find to get out of that slump themselves. Because I agree, Nick, sometimes it's a lifestyle for people, and I get being mad after a game or whatever, but then after 10 minutes, like, move on. I mean, it's sports. At the end of the day, we're there to be entertained and love a team and follow a team and be passionate about it, but it can't be a lifestyle. I mean, for them, it can be. They're athletes. We're fans. So
exactly.
I want to make it funnier. Make the just 3 words or 2 words, and just for like the things the Toronto fans can do after a Leafs loss: touch grass. That's it.
Go outside.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think it's just because a lot of people, I mean, like, I don't think we have time to get into the issues with society, but like for a lot of people, they work pretty mundane 9 to 5 jobs where they aren't super happy with it. So for them, it's, oh, I get home at 5, I do some chores, I make dinner, perfect time for 7, where I can sit down, watch the Leafs game. That's my evening before I go to bed at 10, so I can do the same thing over and over again. And I think just for them, it's like, oh, I just wasted 3 hours to watch them lose to Buffalo 5-1. So like I get that, but yeah, at the same time, it's just like you gotta learn to. I think as like Caroline was touching with like her friend about saying about like neutrality, like not getting so invested in the highs or the lows.
Yeah.
So I like that honestly since the since last year's playoff disappointment, that's how my approach has been this season. Like I've enjoyed it when they win, like it's fun, but like I don't get like super excited and let it be like the thing that makes me happy when I wake up in the morning either. Like and same thing, like I don't get super pissed off when they're losing bad. It's like, oh, okay, this is one of 82 games this season and they played bad in it. I'm not gonna get too worked up, and I'm just gonna wake up the next day and, oh, hey, they have another game coming up on 2 days from now. I'll just like, that'll be exciting. Honestly, I spend most of the time watching games just because I want to watch Austin Matthews at this point, just because he's like so fun to watch. And even when they play badly, he still plays amazing. So it's like that's where I find my peace, I guess.
I love it.
Oh, I had it in my head. I don't remember. I think, oh yeah, it's just like even hockey players, like they have a bad game. It might be like a 7-2 loss and they have a practice the next day. They're on the ice smiling and having a good time. Like, it's not like it's a lot about just taking that game and throwing it in the trash. Like if it's bad, and like even if it's a close game, like you move on. It's not, there's more games, just like in like life. If you have a problem, like you either solve it or you don't solve it and you move on. It's like just those two things. And I don't know. Sometimes it's stunning to me. Sometimes it's just like even for me when I'm around the Marlies, like I think, wow, they played terrible. And then I come in the next day and I think, wow, like they're having fun on the ice. Like it's nice to see. And I just think like fans just got to be like, again, if they're playing bad, turn it off, play a video game, go outside for a walk. I don't know. Like there's so many fun things to do that you can do rather than just watching a team lose badly and then watching Sheldon Keefe give his 3 words of why they played bad and say them over and over again.
Well, I think that if you, let's say, have a bad performance or a bad day at work for us, regular people, if you go into the next day at work being like, yesterday was a bad day, so I'm not going to be happy, like you're going to have another bad day. Do you know what I mean? Like that doesn't make any sense. So if you have a bad game, of course the boys should come the next day on the ice, even if it's a practice, and smile and move on, because if not, they're never going to. So maybe that's a good little recipe for success for Leafs fans too, is like, feel your feelings, honor them, breathe in, breathe out, move on, or else you're going to keep carrying that with you. And maybe that's the problem in Toronto, but I don't know. Like, it's an interesting fan base, of course, a very solid, loyal fan base in terms of supporting like the team for so many years. But I don't understand. When I started seeing like trade John Tavares, I'm like, whoa, like relax, look at his numbers. He's fine. Just, breathe a little. Like, where's everyone needs to just chill. But I mean, again, that's Toronto. But quickly, let's move on. It's Rasmus Sandin's birthday today. Happy birthday. And he scored the only goal against the Sabres. So good moment for him. But then he was out with illness against the Canucks. Michael, you tweeted the other day that Sandin will challenge for a top pairing position, but right now he's just not ready. Thoughts on that? Because I feel like the fan base, and I mean, you could say this about every player on the Toronto Maple Leafs with the fan base at some point. It's like they praise him, but then there's a week later, everyone's kind of tearing him down. It's kind of the conversation with Sandin right now, but talk to me about your tweet.
Well, for one thing that people need to remember is that Rasmus Sandin only just turned 22 years old.
Yes.
He is just barely getting his feet wet in the NHL, and this is his first proper season in the NHL. Like 2019-20 was a call-up stint, and he played a little bit. And then the previous season, he barely got a chance to play, and his only real action was in the playoffs. So this is his first full season. And by all accounts, he's been playing really well, and obviously slowly but surely working his way up the depth charts. Now, is he ready for the top pairing minutes? Absolutely not. Like I get what Keith was going for. He's been playing well and has to reward his young guy with a good opportunity, especially on the right side, which is a position that has always been a lingering hole. Like who's going to be the top pairing defenseman on the right side? And right now, it's obviously TJ Brody, but I'm sure that Keith's thinking one day it should be Rasmus Sandin. And stuff in games like this is like a good stepping stone. And similar to a few weeks ago where the Leafs tried a pairing of Sandin and Liljegren on the second pair when both Muzzin and Hall were out with injuries. It's one of those situations where you give that an opportunity. However it goes, that's always a good experience because then you take it, you learn from it, and you get better. And I think Rasmus Sandin is going to learn from that experience just how to be better defensively, because when that happens, like always the confidence will continue to grow. And I do think there will be a day where Sandin is a top pairing defenseman, potentially playing alongside Morgan Riley. And if Morgan Riley starts to take some declines in the later years of his contract, then that'd be a perfect opportunity to swap Riley with Sandin. But again, you have to start that process this season when it's his first full year, because I think the Leafs do view highly on Sandin because by all accounts, in terms of all the other prospects in the system, he is the future.
I think he's going to end up being, at the very least, a very good top four defenseman. I think that I always kind of envision him as being kind of the Muzzin replacement, which so it kind of makes sense, especially with his injury, to kind of start to see how that works in. But at the same time, even if we have a healthy defense core, having him on the third pair is just such an added luxury for the team because he crushes those minutes. He has some of the best numbers out of any defenseman, or underlying numbers this season. And a lot of it has come in very sheltered minutes, but at the very least, it shows that if you have a good top four, having him out on your third pair is going to be great. Because I was having this conversation with a friend the other day because he was talking about how daunting Tampa Bay's defense is. And yes, you have Hedman. I'm not gonna say any of the Leafs touch Hedman as far as how good they are. But their right side is about as average as ours is. It's usually Cernak and Ruda in their top four on the right side, which Brody and then Liljegren and Hole, that's not a huge difference. And then Muzzin and McDonough, if Muzzin is his usual self, is pretty much a wash. And then you have Sergachev on their third pair, which is what makes them so daunting as well. So having someone like that in Sandin is, I think, pretty important going into the playoffs. And it's nice to see him get those expanded roles right now with all the injuries. And obviously you'd love to see him do well in it, but if he's not ready, he's not ready. And yeah.
I'm excited to see what they do with the defense. I'm really it's so hard to figure, if Muzzin's out, which it doesn't seem like he will be until the playoffs. I mean, they have Brandon Pridham, and they're doing probably calculations every minute of the day. But who do they get, and who? I was thinking earlier, imagine if Jake Muzzin, you put the scenario in, Muzzin was out for the rest of the playoffs, and they had that cap hit of, I think it was almost $6 million. You bring in a guy that can play the right side or the left side, sorry, and then imagine having the ability to put Muzzin on the third pairing along with Sandin, that makes it, or maybe even having Sandin on the second pairing and Muzzin and somebody else, however way you want it. It's that scary. It makes them a scarier team to play against. If Muzzin is the third pairing guy, and I don't really know if they would want to put him that low in the lineup, but I've always thought of that, and I've always thought that could be really cool if they were able to do that, but I don't think they will be, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, imagine they bring in Mark Giordano and have him and Brody reunited as a shutdown pair. That'd be
what?
especially apparently Giordano, like from what I've been hearing, isn't even like that highly like, or what's like his value isn't even like super high apparently in the market. Like they aren't Seattle apparently isn't expecting to get a first for him. And like that feels like Taylor Hall 2.0 to me.
And then
Well,
like you think,
I
sorry,
was
go
going to
ahead,
say,
Michael.
Chikrin, the noise around Jacob Chikrin has gotten a little quiet, so I'll say.
Okay, guys, let's quickly wrap up this episode because I also got an Oilers pregame show to do. But tonight, the Leafs are taking on the Blue Jackets. So the last time they played was on February 22nd, where they lost 4-3 in OT. Patrick Laine right now has 5 points in his last 3 games. So obviously a guy that the Leafs are going to need to shut down. Must win for the boys. Like 2 tough games against the Sabres and the Canucks. This is a game where they should, come together as a group and hopefully change the tide a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think if the last game was any indication against the Blue Jackets, the Leafs cannot take them lightly. And a couple of games ago against the LA Kings, the Blue Jackets scored, 3 goals in under a minute. They are a pretty decent offensive team. So the Leafs will need to be more tidy defensively this time around and just make life a little bit easier for, I think it's Mrazek starting tonight. Is that for sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just, they need to have a good performance in front of Mrazek because that's the kind of game that, that's the kind of game that could start the momentum going in the Leafs' favor in terms of their goaltending. But yeah, like they have to take Columbus very seriously and have to have a good start because Columbus can bury you if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's funny because like Columbus is pretty much the opposite of what they were when we played them in the playoffs. Like they're a bad defensive team, their goaltending's rough, but offensively they're just like they can keep up with you, which with the Leafs having bad goaltending probably isn't the best combination. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. It should probably be chaotic, like last time. Like that was like that was more or less what it boiled down to. Was like I even thought the Leafs played fine in that game too. Is just they probably left a bit too much space for a couple of the players on some of the shots, and the goalies didn't save them. And yeah, I mean at least this time it's Merzlikins in instead of Berube, so it won't be as embarrassing if we lose.
I think, I don't know. I feel like I don't remember a game where Patrick Laine has been playing good and then it's against the Leafs. So I feel like he's going to come in with some nice style walking into the dressing room. And then I feel like he's just going to unload on the Leafs. I think that's going to be the night where people are going to start the discussion again of Laine versus Matthews.
Sometimes when I see Patrick Laine is like swaggy outfits coming in, I'm like, this guy looks like a WWE superstar. I don't know what it is about him, but he looks like he should be in the WWE. I don't know if that's like a career avenue for him after the NHL, but there's just something about him where he's got like a star quality to him about when he does not try at all. Like I don't know Patrick Laine, but I feel like he doesn't really like care. But he's got that star quality. And sometimes I'm like, I could see that look being the entrance to the WWE. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah. It's always funny to think back to that like 2016 draft and remember that like Laine was touted as the goal scorer of that draft. Like they were expecting him to be the goal scorer while like Matthews was more of an all-around player. Instead, Matthews is the more all-around player and also scores goals better than Patrick Laine. But yeah, like he's a bit of a wild card going in because he could have a game where like if he's not scoring goals, then he's not really that effective for like the Blue Jackets. So I guess you just got to hope that he's not scoring goals.
All right, guys, let's all give our songs quickly and wrap up episode 23. I'll start it off. Chris Stapleton, Tennessee Whiskey, because he is my favorite artist of all time. I'm maybe of country music of all time. And I wouldn't even consider him purely country, but I heard his song on the radio the other day and I'm like, oh, I forgot about this. And it's one of my faves. So that's my answer.
I kept hearing you saying breathe in, breathe out. And I just immediately thought of a Kanye West song which is the exact same title. And yes, I did finish Genius, which was an amazing documentary, by the way. So my pick for this week is Breathe In, Breathe Out by Kanye West featuring Ludacris.
I love it. That's so good. Okay.
Mine this week that I've been listening to a lot too is more of a classic, Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears.
Nice.
Probably one of my favorite songs from the 80s. And yeah, it's yeah, it's just always a bop. I think you can always throw it on and it's pretty fun.
I'm gonna go with, it's called Bam Bam by Camila Cabello and Ed Sheeran. It just came out Friday, and I did not think it was good at first, and then I continued to play it, and I was like, oh my god, it's actually pretty good. So that's what I'll go with.
Oh my God. Maybe that's how we'll feel about goaltending with the Leafs here in a couple weeks. The more you watch it, the more you realize it's getting better. So hopefully we'll end on a positive note. Obviously the Leafs drop the puck tonight, 7 p.m., right? Against the Columbus Blue Jackets. All right, guys, We'll be back next Monday. This has been episode 23, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for listening to TLN Radio, a member of the Nation network of podcasts and delivered by DoorDash. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode.